So now the second special Rosh Hashanah blessing, Zikhronot, remembrances, one of the names of the day, Yom HaZikaron. And this brings us to the Hebrew word for faith, emunah. In English, faith evokes belief in, like I think about God and I decide what I do and don't believe. The Hebrew emunah is closer to faithfulness. American poet Kathleen Norris puts it this way: faith is not intellectual assent or suspension of the intellect. Faith is what we give our heart to. Faith in this sense is a doing, feeling, thinking, whole person, active, relational process. Did I give my heart because I felt the claim I spoke about earlier? Or did I feel that claim because I gave my heart? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Either way, emunah is about the long-haul, patient, multi-generational faithfulness to certain experiences, commitments, values, vision, hope, the things we've given our hearts to. Covenantal living. Later, you can take it home and read it. The excerpt on your page from Parker Palmer, number 2, he speaks about faithfulness in non-theistic terms. It's the same thing, right? It's good fodder for lunch discussion. And this is where memory comes in. I've tried to make the case that experiencing God, coming to faith, can emerge from our experience with reality, not some totally other realm. The point is not that there's more to reality than what we see. The point is there's more to reality than what we usually see, what we focus on. A sustainable faith is grounded in a practice of noticing the more that's there more of the time. Remembering it, even when it's hard to discern. This is not escapism. It's the both and, the standing in the tragic gap. And it is really hard. I could talk from now until next Rosh Hashanah. Don't worry, I won't. David, I won't. But I could about the realness of the realm of the spirit and goodness and truth and aspiration. We could read Leah Goldberg's poem 1,000,000 times. It will always be hard to hold, especially together with some of the most brutal aspects of reality. We're part of a larger oneness, right? A system of inherent meaning. It's lovely. We get a glimpse of it, and it's gone. Why? Because the ego asserts itself as a separate self, and we get lost in self-concern. Or because we go about our business, and we forget. Right? Goodness, meaning, preciousness, we see it. We know it. And then there's another horrific headline that grabs our attention, or we face devastating illness or loss, or we're the recipient of random rage because someone on the street thinks we're in their way. But this is the practice. Every time I make the effort to connect to the goodness, which I know is true and real because I've experienced it, and maybe I want to call that goodness God, it becomes a little easier to reconnect the next time. And that series of connections becomes the aspirational end of the tragic gap. What could be? Then it's heartbreaking, but in a tender way, because I remember that I hurt because I love. Now, this kind of faith doesn't need a deus ex machina, the Monty Python finger of God, right, coming down and doing things. It rests on A, my own experiences of goodness in the world, B, my intuition that that good is somehow mysteriously indestructible and infinitely precious, and C, my knowledge that I can be part of that goodness in ways that matter. I can remember all that and be faithful to that memory and give my heart to it again and again and again. And actually, this kind of faithfulness is the opposite of that Monty Python finger of God. It's an active engagement using all my agency, not sitting passively waiting for God or a charismatic superhero leader to intervene and fix everything, nor blaming all the problems on one bad actor or one problem group. It's remembering that all those big intractable systems and institutions and problems, they're made up of individuals and their choices. Different choices can be made, some small number of them by me. So emunah, faithfulness, requires practice and the courage and strength to stay true to our values and commitments because they have meaning beyond ourselves, even when our hearts are broken. Sometimes we're put to the test in a moment and we have to make a choice. Mostly, it's a lifetime of building habits of the heart, character. So when the big moments and smaller challenges come, we're ready. We have recently witnessed a living example of that faithfulness. We have some of us in the room right now. But I'm thinking of Rachel Goldberg and John Pollan, the parents of Hirsch Goldberg Pollan, Zikhronot, who was taken hostage and then murdered by Hamas. I don't know them, and I can't imagine what they live with when they are alone at night. But one of the reasons our hearts broke with theirs, even as they inspired us so much, is because they publicly model this emunah, this faithfulness too. They were not allowed the fantasy of belief in a God who would protect them from the bad things. The unspeakable happened to them. But they stayed faithful in the sense that they stayed kind. They stayed loving. They stayed expansive. They kept the big Jewish human work front and center, even when their own world fell apart. That kind of faithfulness is breathtaking, and it has the power to transform the world. And they are not fundamentally different from any of us. That's faith. So we'll turn to our service of memory. The service of Zikhronot, page 159.